Business alert, the stock market tumbling, plunging yet again as the Dow drops another 545 points by yesterday's close, the worst two-day loss in 8 months when you combine Wednesday and Thursday. But should we really live and die by the Dow and by these markets? Here now to weigh in is CPA and financial analyst Dan Geltrude. Dan, thanks for coming on this morning. It dropped 800 points on Wednesday. Back when the market was sitting at 8,000, the Dow was, that would have been panic mode. Right. But when you're sitting at 26,000, 800 is, a bad day in some ways. It's crazy to think that way, but when you look percentage-wise.
Yeah, when you look at the situation, look, we've dropped 1,300 points over a two-day period, okay? We already know historically that October is a very volatile month. Now, volatility doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to go down. In fact, that's not always the case. We're going to have ups and downs. Why? Look, we're ending the third quarter. Now we're going into the real earnings period. What's going to happen as things are shaping up, as we get to see whether companies are really going to hit those year-end numbers, particularly with the benefit of all the tax cuts.
Right.
So
the Fed at this point is, or I'm sorry, a lot of the critics out there are blaming China. The president is blaming the Fed and the rising interest rates. Who's right here? Because a lot of the analysts say that the president's not right to blame the rising interest rates.
I think the president really does have a good point here. When you talk about why is the Fed raising interest rates, we're in a period where we don't have inflation and we don't have an economy that's overheating. So why start to put the brakes on the economy by pumping up that interest rate?
What makes you think the economy's not overheating is my question. I understand that inflation is still being relatively managed, and that's a good thing. But we are cooking right now. And are they worried about that?
That's what they're saying they're worried about. I think the president is looking at it a little bit different and say, hey, we got midterm elections coming up here. Why do we want to start having bad economic news when how well we've performed over the last 2 years? Is there really a reason for that? And I think the president is right to be critical of the Fed. And don't forget, the market has emotion to it, right, Rob?
Yeah.
So now you're starting to tumble, and the Fed comes out and they say, oh, and by the way, we're going to continue to raise interest rates through 2020.
Yeah.
Now, how does that help things? It doesn't make sense.
They are. I just applied for a mortgage. They gave me 5.5% on a 30-year. That was 3.5% just a couple years ago. So,
right.
I mean, that's gonna slow things down, and that's exactly what the president does not want. He's been hanging on the economy for most of his presidency. Let's talk about, we've got these mergers that are interesting that people are talking about right now. Right. You've got CVS merging with Aetna. This is a major retailer merging with a major insurance company. What is this going to do to the market for pharmaceuticals?
Well, what they're telling everybody is because you have a merger like this, we're going to be able to reduce costs and pass those costs along to the consumers. Do you really believe that we're going to see a drop in our health care costs? I don't think so. I do believe that CVS and Aetna are going to save a lot of money. But, we have to be careful in this industry. This is the largest health care merger that we have seen so far. They have 115 million customers between the two of them. That's a third of the country. Yeah. So there's a lot of people concerned about moving towards single payer and healthcare being consolidated kind of under one roof. And then we have a merger like this. There's some concern there, Rob.
Yeah, well, there is. It's going to be a lot less options for people. And you're right. It could get more expensive because why would it get cheaper if they have less competition? Dan, thank you so much for coming on this morning.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time. All right, 18 minutes.